She thought the internet made her invisible. She thought her lies were safe behind a firewall of burner accounts. But she made one fatal error. She left a trail of code. And I found it. I wasn't just going to sue her. I was going to use her own password to air her entire devastating confession on her own page. This is the true story of how I delivered digital vengeance. My name is Maya. I built my career on transparency, on carefully curated connection. I was a digital creator, a lifestyle coach, someone who believed in the genuine power of the internet to connect and inspire. My feed was my livelihood, my community, my sanctuary. It was a place where kindness was supposed to multiply, where success was built on trust. And then the digital darkness arrived, not as a troll but as a phantom, a whisper of poison that grew into a deafening roar. Her name was Chloe. We weren't friends, not exactly, but we were competitors, rivals in the same vibrant, volatile niche, the world of wellness and personal branding. We attended the same conferences, sat on the same panels, exchanged those tight, professional smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. I always knew she was ambitious, sharp, maybe a little ruthless. I never knew she was capable of destruction. It started subtly. A few months ago, a comment on a post about my new sponsorship deal. Be careful who you trust with your money. Not all success is earned. I dismissed it. Trolls exist. But then the comments multiplied, appearing not just on my page but on the pages of my biggest sponsors, my partners, my colleagues. They were posted by anonymous burner accounts, usually just created, usually with cryptic, damaging language. Ask her about the money that disappeared from the charity drive last year. I know people who worked with her. They say she's a professional scam artist. The whispers began to connect. They weren't just random attacks. They were focused, targeted, hitting the precise weak points that could dismantle a brand built on integrity. They claimed I faked my credentials, stole a previous client's idea, and most devastatingly, embezzled funds from a small local mental health charity I had publicly supported the year before. The allegations were meticulously tailored, sounding just plausible enough to plant a seed of doubt. I watched, horrified, as the first tendrils of poison took hold. The initial trickle of concern from my community turned into a steady flow of direct messages asking, "Is this true, Maya?" The tone was shifting from curiosity to suspicion. The engagement on my posts plummeted. The algorithms that had once celebrated my work now seemed to hide it, seeing it as controversial, toxic. I was being quarantined. Then came the body blow. My largest sponsor, a major athletic wear company, called. Their tone was cold, purely professional. "We've seen the allegations, Maya. They are now trending outside of your niche. Pending resolution, we are pausing all campaigns and contracts." The silence on the phone was the sound of my income stream being severed. The pause was a firing. It was a financial execution. In the span of just 3 weeks, the reputation I had spent 5 years building, my entire financial and professional foundation, was reduced to rubble by a handful of anonymous accounts and a sustained campaign of digital defamation. I spiraled. The betrayal was crushing because it wasn't physical. It was intangible, a violation of trust in the space I called home. I looked at the comments, the thousands of hateful, suspicious messages, and I felt utterly helpless. How do you fight a ghost? How do you defend your character against 1,000 keyboard warriors fueled by lies? I was paralyzed by the sheer volume of the attack. I stopped sleeping. I started pulling back from friends, ashamed to admit the extent of the disaster. Every time my phone buzzed, a wave of cold anxiety washed over me. The digital world, which had been my ally, became a tormentor. It was my partner, Alex, a software engineer, who finally pulled me out of the paralyzing fear. "Stop looking at the noise, Maya," he said, holding me tight one night as I cried over my dimmed screen. "Look at the pattern. Look at the code. This isn't random. This is orchestrated." He was right. I was letting the emotional impact blind me to the logical mechanics of the attack. I was an analyst at heart, and I needed to treat this not as a personal crisis but as a complex cybercrime. I had to stop being the victim and become the investigator. I had to follow the digital footprints. My investigation began in absolute silence. I hired a specialized digital forensics firm, people who lived in the shadows of the internet, men and women who understood the deep web of proxies and metadata. Their first task was simple: trace the burner accounts. It was tedious, complex work, involving IP logs, cross-referencing activity patterns, and exploiting minute coding errors. The burner accounts were sophisticated, using VPNs and layered proxies, but they were also human. And humans make mistakes, particularly when they feel too safe. The mistake was small, a momentary lapse in operational security. Two of the key burner accounts, created 2 months apart, had briefly connected to the same free, obscure Wi-Fi network at a coffee shop in Chloe's neighborhood on the same day, just 5 minutes apart, before their VPNs kicked in. That sliver of unsecured data, a shared unmasked IP address, was the first thread, almost invisible, but enough to give me a name. And I knew the name belonged to Chloe. The sheer audacity of it left me shaking with a cold, righteous fury. She was not just a rival. She was a predator. She had systematically tried to destroy my life out of professional jealousy, using the anonymity of the digital age as her shield. I felt a profound shift, the despair replaced by a steel-hard resolve. This wasn't about fame anymore. It was about survival and justice. Now that I had my suspect, the plan shifted from defense to offense. I wasn't going to sue her immediately. Lawsuits are slow, expensive, and they only validate the controversy. I needed justice delivered on the same public stage where the crime occurred. I needed a victory that was instant, undeniable, and universally satisfying. I needed her own platform to become the weapon of her undoing. The problem remained. How to prove the hundreds of anonymous comments were specifically linked to her, beyond a few circumstantial IP logs. I needed the smoking gun. I needed to expose her completely, using her own digital fingerprints. I shifted tactics. Instead of fighting the allegations, I started feeding them. I returned to my social media, but only to post cryptic, professional updates about the ongoing internal audit of my charity work. I even posted a few vague, anxious messages suggesting I was close to a breakdown, expressing how the lies were taking a toll. I wanted her to feel emboldened. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to believe she had me on the ropes, ready to deliver the knockout blow. I wanted her to make a final fatal mistake that would expose her own hubris. And she did. Chloe, seeing my brand faltering, interpreted my anxiety as weakness. She decided to move from the shadows into the light, believing she was the moral victor. She began posting vague, highly moralistic messages on her own feed about the importance of integrity in the creator space, about the need to clean house and weed out the fakes. Then she took the final arrogant step. She arranged for an exclusive interview with a mid-tier online business magazine, positioning herself as the voice of ethical commerce, the one who was cleaning up the space. In the interview, she didn't name me, but she referenced the scandal with stunning clarity. Some people build their following on smoke and mirrors, even diverting funds from noble causes. The community is better off without them. It was a direct hit, publicly validating the anonymous claims and crowning herself as the successor. This was her final triumphant claim of victory, scheduled to go live in exactly 1 week. But that arrogance was the opening I needed. She had committed the crime in the digital world, and the digital world would deliver the sentence. My team, led by Alex and David Chun, the forensic accountant I hired to trace my financial damage, had been busy. We knew Chloe's digital habits were sloppy. We knew her passwords were weak, relying on easily guessable names and dates. Crucially, we knew she relied heavily on autosync across all her devices for efficiency. And we knew that she always used one main, unencrypted file sharing service to collaborate with her own team, believing it was protected by the sheer volume of her data. The plan was a digital operation executed with surgical precision. It was completely silent, completely legal, and terrifyingly effective. We first used the circumstantial IP evidence to get a court order for access to a single specific cloud folder on that unencrypted file sharing service, citing defamation and corporate espionage. The argument was that she had been collaborating with the anonymous accounts to steal my business ideas, a broad net, but the judge granted a preliminary, sealed access order based on the initial technical evidence we provided. The moment the legal access was granted, Alex executed the plan. He didn't look for business plans. He looked for communication and strategy, and there it was. Not in a text message, but in a hidden folder labeled strategy. It contained a series of detailed burner account instruction sheets. Spreadsheets outlining the exact day, time, and content for each defamatory comment to be posted. The targets, the phrasing, the precise lie about the charity funds. It was all there, meticulously planned, written in Chloe's own voice, signed off with her internal team's code names. The smoking gun wasn't a gun at all. It was an Excel file, a digital ledger of her malice. I held the printout of that spreadsheet, my hands shaking not from fear, but from the immense chilling power of absolute truth. She hadn't just defamed me. She had committed premeditated character assassination, planning my ruin like a product launch. My revenge would be delivered on the very day her magazine interview dropped. The day she expected to be crowned the new queen of integrity. I worked with Alex and a public relations specialist I still trusted. The plan was not to sue the magazine or even issue a press release. The revenge had to be delivered to my original community, directly on the platform where the lies began. The final terrifying piece of the plan involved her own account. Knowing her reliance on sync, her predictable password structure, and the information gathered from the court order, Alex was able to gain temporary, limited access to her main social media account. Just enough to bypass the initial security layer and publish one devastating post. It was a digital lockpick, legal because of the preceding court order and the evidence of corporate crime. On the morning the magazine interview went live, Chloe posted a photo of herself, smiling triumphantly, captioned, "It's time for the community to recognize genuine integrity." Minutes later, my team executed the final sequence. A new post appeared on Chloe's feed, not written by her, but posted directly to her community. It wasn't accusatory. It was confessional, delivered by the undeniable authority of her own brand. The post contained a carousel of 5 images. The first image was a high-resolution screenshot of her strategy spreadsheet, clearly showing the names of the burner accounts, the planned comments, and her signature at the bottom. The second, a comparison of my charity's clean financial records, proving no funds were missing, next to her own planning document. The third, a simple stark image of the legal court order granting us access to her digital files. The fourth was a side-by-side of her unmasked IP address and the coffee shop location. The text accompanying the images was simple, devastating, and final. It read, "This account is temporarily controlled by legal counsel. The following documents prove systematic defamation and intentional corporate espionage against a competitor. The truth about integrity is now presented for the community to judge. The accounts that attacked my advance were coordinated and run from this source. Read the evidence. Share the truth. Justice is served." The internet didn't just break. It exploded. The response was immediate. Disbelief turned instantly to horror, and then to a furious, righteous wave of community justice. Her comment section went ballistic, not with anonymous slander, but with real people, former colleagues, real friends, and the very community she tried to manipulate turning against her. She was facing a public tribunal more severe than any courtroom. The magazine, humiliated and threatened with legal action by my team, pulled the interview within the hour. Her sponsors, already alerted by my PR team with the confidential evidence, dropped her with unprecedented speed, citing moral turpitude clauses. The fallout wasn't gradual, it was a digital supernova. Chloe didn't get to manage the narrative, deny the claims, or hide behind lawyers. Her own platform, her greatest asset, instantly became the tool of her complete and total downfall. I watched the unfolding chaos from my quiet apartment. There was no joy, only a deep, weary satisfaction. I didn't cheer. I didn't post a triumphant selfie. I had faced the darkness, analyzed the attack, and delivered the truth in the only language the internet truly understands. Undeniable, viral, digital evidence. Within 48 hours, Chloe deleted her account entirely, vanishing from the online world she had tried to dominate through malice. She was gone, erased by the very community she tried to manipulate. The irony was the sweetest victory. She had been socially erased by her own actions. I didn't return to posting immediately. I spent months quietly rebuilding the foundations of my brand, not just on trust but on proof. I used the court-verified documents to successfully sue her in civil court for damages, winning a massive judgment that recovered every cent of lost sponsorship money and more. The court confirmed the truth, providing the final institutional validation I needed, the one that can never be deleted or downvoted. When I finally did return to social media, I did it differently. I didn't shy away from the trauma. I spoke about the truth. I became an advocate, teaching others how to recognize and fight digital defamation, using my own experience as a case study in resilience. I learned that kindness isn't enough to build a sanctuary. You need code. You need proof. You need the quiet strength to treat betrayal not as a personal disaster, but as a problem to be solved with cold, hard facts. My name is Maya. I am a survivor and I am an analyst. And I learned that the greatest revenge isn't just winning. It's using your enemy's own tools to build something stronger, truer, and far more powerful than they ever could.